Okay, you're here. You go there.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I do what I'm told. You want me closer? Jen will yell at me. It won't be any good. All right, we'll get. You want to get closer? Come on, let's get you go. Come on,
we go
we'll
closer?
Get closer. All right.
All right.
I'm sorry. I was just keeping my respectful distance. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay.
Should I sit here, Matt?
I think.
Oh, are you on? Oh, we're together. That's right.
Yeah.
Now we're really going to get in trouble. All right, you have to let me. Sauger's in charge here, but I think it's awfully important as the chairman. I'm really basically the host for everyone who speaks here. And one of the things we want to do is to give you interesting content about the issues that are happening in society, all of them. And we want to give you different perspectives. And I think it takes, some of you know that I will go on CNN and MSNBC, and I've been on the Bill Maher show, I went on The View. And I actually think that's pretty important to do because it's important for people on the right and on the left to be able to talk to each other in a civil way. So I think we ought to appreciate the fact that Van Jones has a lot of courage and character to be here today.
It's an honor.
And you're getting, people are standing.
Good. It's an honor. I appreciate it.
And, of course, we're going to disagree. If we went into all the political issues, we'd probably disagree on most things. But like every two human beings, there are things that we do agree on. And we're here to talk about one of those.
Absolutely. So on that note, Van Jones, what are you doing here?
I thought it was an ACLU gathering. Yeah. Turns out it's not.
Here, I can really help you with that. You know, it's ACU. Okay?
ACU! It's almost as good as an ACLU gathering. No, I'm here because I'm concerned. There are battleground issues that we don't agree on, and we should disagree where we don't agree. That's what democracy means. Democracy means you don't have to agree. Dictatorship, you have to agree. Democracy means you get to disagree. So that's good. Where we don't agree, we should fight. Try to fight clean, we should fight. My problem is not the battleground. My problem is there are common ground issues where we do agree, and we won't work together on those all too often. And that's got to stop in America. That's got to stop in America. And you can work together on it.
You know, Van, on that point, you're one of the few Democrats that I've seen that actually will work with the president. What blowback have you gotten from the left for doing so, for appearing at events like these?
Look, when you say the left, who do you mean? Are there people on Twitter?
I might be able to help you with that. I can really help you with that.
Jump in when you feel free.
Yeah. Look, are there people on Twitter who say mean things? Yes, but here's what I'll say on criminal justice reform. If you're on Twitter calling me a sellout for working with Trump on criminal justice reform, here's what I know about you. If you're on Twitter, you're not in a federal prison because they don't have Twitter in federal prison. I don't have to listen to you. I care about the people who are locked up. That's who I care about.
Matt, you know, the First Step Act was quite literally in its name. But what is the second step for conservatives on criminal justice reform? What does it look like? Is it prosecutorial reform? Are there other issues and crimes that you want to work with on the left? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I would say the first thing is Pat Nolan, who runs our Center on Criminal Justice Reform.
A hero.
If you haven't seen Pat around CPAC, you ought to go talk to him. His personal story is, I'd almost say it's like it's almost un-American what happened to him. Really, it's really a travesty. In my opinion, sometimes we criminalize our political disagreements, and I think Pat was a victim of that, and it's affected his whole life. And he's a good Christian man who puts the best face on it. So people like that, I'll listen. My view as being the chairman of this organization is there's a lot of people like that I should listen to. I will tell you, I approach criminal justice reform from probably my own experiences. And you know, when you do battle in the swamp and you work for a Republican president, and you're a staffer, it seems sometimes that political disagreements turn into legal jeopardy for you. And it is a strange thing that every modern Republican president has a special counsel, each and every one. And they always seem to find themselves, and the people around them find themselves in the situation where, you know, once again, their political differences turn into them having to hire a lawyer because people are coming after them. And I think We need to call a truce on these things. And look, I know, Van, you and I will disagree on this, but I think that plays into what's happening today as special counsel. There are times for special. Special should be a very unique set of circumstances.
Well,
and
Matt,
it's turned into like constant. And so I think we need to have a truce on certain things, and we need to take our political disagreements to the ballot box. I mean, let's see where the American people are.
well, I'll say a couple of things. I think Clinton had a special prosecutor
He did.
as well. So
He did. He's the only Democrat that got one, so, you know, it happens every once in a while. By the way, he had to do a pretty terrible thing to get that, so, you know.
Well,
Go there.
we got 12 minutes. We got 12 hours.
Right.
But let's talk about it though. If you think it's tough, and it is tough, to be at a high federal level and have a prosecutor come after you,
It's nothing like these people.
think about
Yep, that's right.
the people who don't have a dollar to their name,
Yep.
who are in Appalachia, who are in Chicago, who are in Native American reservations. When the prosecutors come after them, they do not have the ability to defend themselves. And part of, I think, what we have to start to recognize here is that both parties have sacred values and principles that are being run over by excessive incarceration. At your best, the Republican Party and the conservative movement believes in the idea of liberty, which is limited government and respect for individual rights and dignity. At our best, we believe in the concept of justice, making sure that the little folks don't get run over by the big folks. That's why we tell our kids liberty and justice for all, okay? Because if you have justice without liberty, we want social justice. We want to make sure the little people aren't run over, but we don't care anything about individual rights. What we get is totalitarianism. Justice without liberty is totalitarianism. And liberty, let the market do whatever you want to and don't care about the poor, don't care about the planet, gives you too much, too much corporate power in the system. So liberty without justice is also a nightmare. We tell our kids liberty and justice for all because I've never seen a bird that can fly with only a left wing, not even in Berkeley. I've never seen a bird fly with only a left wing. I've never seen a bird fly with only a right wing, not even in Mississippi. We need each other. We need each other. And on this issue of criminal justice reform, it is the most anti-liberty, anti-justice thing that we've built. And I learned it from Newt Gingrich, who I had a TV show with. And Newt told me, Van, you are doing a bad job on criminal justice reform because you only speak about it from the racial justice perspective. He told me as a conservative, Newt Gingrich, he said, we have now a big failed government bureaucracy that eats up money and eats up rights and has no accountability and sends people home bitter and not better. That's wrong. He said the libertarians in my party feel that this thing is eating up too many rights. He said, as a Christian conservative, Van, where are the second chances? Where is the redemption? Somebody makes a mistake, fine, but when they come home, they can't get a job, they're not welcome back, they can't get a student loan. He said, we've got to do something. I said, Newt, where have you been all my life? Where have you been?
Well, to that point, Van, who has been better for criminal justice reform? Was it former President Obama or is it President Trump?
Hey, listen. Hey.
Yeah.
I tell you what. I tell you what. As on so many things, both parties should be proud.
Okay.
As on both things. Hey, listen, President Obama, give him his credit now. President Obama was willing to raise this issue and willing to reach out to the Koch brothers and willing to go into prisons, and his attorney generals tried to make some changes. He was not able to get it across the finish line. President Trump, to his credit, got it across the finish line, and now we got the First Step Back. So we got a relay race going. We should both be proud. Both parties should be proud.
You know, this is a conservative conference, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up some of the conservative concerns. Some people, like Tom Cotton, they looked at this and they said, you know, the First Step Act is letting out bank robbers, it's letting out carjackers, it's letting out felons who assault kids, people who assault cops. Why is it a good thing, and this is to both of you, that those people are getting out early?
Well, let me try first, just real quickly. My entry, that's right, but my entry into this issue is a basic concept, which is we all will spend this whole conference talking about how the federal government gets a lot of things wrong and spends a lot of money getting things wrong. Why out of nowhere do you think someone waved a magic wand and everything they do when it comes to our federal prison system is unimpeachable? We know as conservatives we should be skeptical of the idea that a government gets everything right. And so the first step is, the first way to look at this is you look at states like Texas. You and I were talking about this backstage, but the Texas example is a great one because Rick Perry was just here, our great Secretary of Energy. And what did Rick Perry do in Texas? He had financial issues because they were building prison after prison after prison. And what he decided to do is say, hey, let's look at some of these reforms. Let's make sure the inmates are closer to their families. Let's make sure inmates can learn skills. You know why? 97% or some odd are coming back into society anyway. Wouldn't you want them coming back into society with good, healthy family relationships and the ability to get a job and get off welfare? And this is stuff we can agree with. So for my conservative friends who criticize the bill, it's almost like they're trying to find a way that it's not perfect. And we all know there's not been a perfect piece of legislation that really ever passed. And so, yes, I'm sure there are things that each one of you would want to change, but the concepts are as I described. Understand that this prisoner is coming back to you unless they're a horrible, violent felon. If they're not, they're coming back into society. I want them coming back into society ready to succeed.
Yeah. Hey, listen. I have to say something against my own interests here. Here's the deal. The conservative movement in this country, unfortunately from my point of view, is now the leader on this issue of reform in that you look at Mississippi, a rock-ribbed, totally conservative, former jailer is the governor there, Governor Bryant. Governor Bryant has cut the prison population and crime at the same time. Deal in Georgia cut the prison population and crime at the same time. Rick Perry cut the prison population, prison expenditures, and crime at the same time. Ohio, South Carolina, what you're seeing now are Republican governors being tough on the dollars, tough on crime, and shrinking prison populations and showing the rest of the country that it can be done. Now, my problem is I now have a conservative movement that for libertarian reasons, for Christian conservative reasons, and for fiscally conservative reasons, is actually doing a great job on what should be my issue. This is supposed to be my issue. You are stealing my issue. So, so
They're welcoming you with open arms.
Keep going.
Let me keep going. Look, I'm going to stay in my party. I'm going to stay in my party. But what I want to say, but take some dadgum credit for being smart. Take some dadgum credit for getting it right, and take some dadgum credit for showing that, listen, if you take some food, we had this conversation before.
Yeah, don't take my food.
I'm a socialist according to you. I should take your food. I'm just joking.
We probably don't want to go there either.
That's good. But listen, here's what happened, and you guys understand how this happens. We passed a bunch of laws 30 years ago, throwing the book at everybody for everything. And then we didn't look at it again. A lot of people didn't. It's just like when you get food, you go out to eat, you get a bunch of food, you put it in the refrigerator, and you don't look at it for 3 weeks, 6 weeks. You open that up, it doesn't look like food anymore. This doesn't look like justice anymore. This system has got so much stupid stuff that we've allowed to accumulate. And conservatives and liberals are now coming together. Us for justice reasons, you for liberty reasons, and we're getting something done. Let's keep doing stuff that works. The 3 issues that we should stay together on. We should fight on everything else, and I'm happy to do it. But the 3 issues, please, please. I've been to Appalachia, I've been to the border, I've been to Native American reservations, I've been to inner cities. It's the same pain. Poverty, addiction, and a broken criminal justice system in red counties and blue cities, wherever you go. And neither party has done enough for the people at the bottom who have those 3 issues. And yet, and I have to say this, Trump on poverty did opportunity zones, on addiction did opioid package, and on criminal justice did First Step. And I'm here to say on those 3 issues, I will work with or against any Republican or any Democrat to help the people that neither party has helped for way too long. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
That's a commendable.
And I've seen them, Sagar. I've seen Van be willing to walk in the gates of the White House with President Trump.
Which is not easy.
Offer his hand and agree to work in an honest way on issues you agree with, and I think we need more of that in our politics.
Absolutely. Van, one thing is, you look at this and your passion for this is clear, but is there any chance that you could come to regret this legislation? I mean, one of the reasons that there was appetite for this, crime is at an all-time low.
Yes.
We've talked about this in the past, about we could see a rise in crime. We could see that one person who is released and who commits a horrible act. How do you recover from that? And would there ever be any regret on your part to see criminal justice reform passed?
Look, there's a couple things all in that. We have a strong economy. I thank both President Obama and President Trump for that. We have crime coming down, and it was coming down under Obama and going down. Listen, the liberals were wrong. The liberals said if Trump got in there, he'd destroy the economy, and he didn't. The Republicans said that that Obama had the economy pointing down when it was actually beginning to point up. I think both presidents can be proud, both parties can be proud, and right now is the time to move. You have a strong economy, we need more workers. You got low crime, we can be a little bit braver. And we have some leadership from both sides. I think let's hold up the examples of the positive people who are coming home. Thousands of people are going to come home and do a good job. If somebody comes home and does something terrible, that's horrible. We should take accountability. We should make sure it doesn't happen again. But let's not hold back tens of thousands of people who could come home and do a great job, as is happening in red states, out of fear.
So I see David Savavian sitting out here. David does a lot of work for the ACU on this issue, and I just want to finish this Texas example. A conservative governor, Rick Perry, someone we all respect, they closed 7 prisons, 8 prisons, maybe just closed another one recently. They saved $3 billion. I was born in 1967. The crime rate is the same today as it was in 1967. So to maybe a Senator Cotton or others, they didn't see an explosion in crime. And by the way, violent felons, I think, shouldn't be a part of this conversation. We're talking about people who committed crimes, and some cases it was the furthest thing from a violent crime, and sometimes they just made a terrible mistake. And we shouldn't quit on these people. Pat Nolan, who was really the godfather of this movement, who works for the ACU, said we ought to stop putting people in prison we're just mad at and put people in prison who we fear. And that is a limited understanding of government. There's a role for prisons. I don't want my 5 girls to be unsafe on the street. There are people that cannot live amongst us. But there's just a chance that aggressive prosecutors and big government have colored too wide in what those lines are and who does get thrown away. And I don't want to throw those people away, because we all know, as conservatives and free market people, there's an opportunity cost to every kid you lose, and every kid that doesn't get to live up to his full responsibility. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I didn't just need a second chance. I've needed a lot more than a second chance in my life. And my mom is out there. She knows that. She don't talk to her. She knows too much.
Well, I got to find Mama Schlapp after this. But Matt, a final political question on this.
I want to say something as well, but go ahead.
Please, absolutely.
I get to determine how much time we have.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so this is one of the things I get to do.
Yeah, that's
Let
good.
him go.
Well,
Please.
Well, I don't want to get credit I don't deserve. You mentioned Dave Safavian, who's done an extraordinary job. I happened to be able to found, with Newt Gingrich's help, a bipartisan group called Cut 50, and it was directly impacted people who either been to prison, who had their loved ones who went to prison, like Jessica Jackson, like Lewis Reed, like Topeka Sam, who really fought the fight every day. Frankly, like Jared Kushner, whose father went to prison, who understood we've got so much stupidity in this system. Take out the stupidity. You can still handle the worst of the worst if that's what you want to call it. But there's a lot of stuff happening here that doesn't make any sense. And so let's listen to the people in their millions who have had contact with this big failed government bureaucracy and can tell you how dumb it is. Let's give them some credit. And then also, you know, there's a way that we've been stereotyping each other and missing each other. I shouldn't have just found out all the good stuff that conservatives have been doing inside of prison ministries. If you heard some of the stories coming from some of our communities, your hearts would break. We talk about each other, we don't talk to each other. You know, I think about my Muslim friends. As I've gotten to know them, they embarrass me because the Muslim community, they've got the lowest crime rate, they've got the highest, the American Muslims, lowest crime rate, highest entrepreneurship rate. If a Muslim family moved in next door to me, I'd be so happy because my kids would probably get in much less trouble because they pray together, they work together. We talk about each other. We don't talk to each other. Undocumented immigrants right now have a lower crime rate than the rest of us, and yet we don't talk about that. No, hold on. What I'm saying is...
I told you I controlled the time.
Okay, good. What I'm saying is there are stereotypes about Trump supporters. There are stereotypes, exactly. There are stereotypes about Trump supporters. There are stereotypes about straight white men. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm sitting next to one of the best people in this country who's a straight white man and a Trump supporter. And we've just got to stop talking about each other and talk more to each other. We will find other areas, whether it's family leave, whether it's infrastructure, where we can get stuff done together. And I just want to speak from my heart and say, being invited here, even just now, we didn't agree on everything I just said, but I think the spirit of what I said, don't go with the spirit of what I'm trying to say is, as I've gotten to know more people working on this issue, my mind has been changed. My heart has been changed. My understanding of what we can do together has been changed, and that needs to happen more. That's all I'm saying.
On such a positive note, we got to end there.
Very good.
Thanks, guys.
I love you, Jeffrey Lord.
I see Jeffrey Lord.